What's up, ladies and gentlemen? It's April 5th here, and in this video update, I'm going to discuss with you a lot of the false flag attacks that have been really picking up pace lately, and the season of sacrifice, remember, that we are in, because this is the time of the year that the cabal loves to pull a lot of their sacrificial false flag attacks. Okay, so if you don't remember, I actually did a video on March 20th that outlined the season of sacrifice that started on March 22nd. And then, in fact, we very much did have a false flag attack on March 22nd in London, that attack at the Westminster shooting. Called it pretty easy once you start to understand the way that these crime syndicates operate. Now, just over the past few days, right, we've had a couple false flag attacks occur. On March 31st, just a few days after WikiLeaks dropped their marble part of Vault 7, which actually showed that the CIA frames foreign governments for hacks, right? Frame the Russia hack. And then days after the Trump administration changed their policy in Syria, it looks like there was a false flag attack pulled in Russia, right? And this is essentially those elites saying, you know, if we can't have our war in Russia, we're going to try and make it. So it was fairly obvious that that subway that exploded in St. Petersburg, Russia, was a false flag attack on March 31st. Now, just yesterday, on April 4th, we had a large attack in Syria, a sarin gas chemical attack, where it was reported over 100 people died, and information came out blazingly fast showing this to be yet another false flag attack on 4/4. Remember, they like their dates for their astrological black magic reasoning. Now, the article that came out by the Duran instantly showed this to be a false flag because Syria does not have chemical weapons. Russia was not doing any airstrikes or any overhead runs at the time, so this is quite obvious, something that was pulled by, remember, the cabal cutout terrorist group, whether it was ISIS or another rebel group that gets their funding from these elite organizations. Now, it was pretty obvious that this was a propaganda technique because right when this attack in Syria took place, okay, there was a picture that came out in the Guardian newspaper in England of the white helmets trying to attend to the victims of this attack. Now, remember, Eva Bartlett, the independent investigator, has done a lot of great research on this, but the White Helmets is just a front organization to to help the agenda of regime change in Syria. And in that Duran article, they actually showed that the White Helmets had none of their proper gear on in this propaganda picture that was taken and then spread on mainstream media. So, pretty obvious, another obvious point that it was faked. And then also, the reason this attack occurred yesterday was because today in Brussels, a lot of European ministers are meeting for Syria policy, or to discuss Syria policy. So, pretty obvious that they say, oh, let's, you know, blame an attack on Assad the day before all the ministers in the EU were meeting to discuss Syria. So that's how they operate. It's in plain sight right there. There's no question about it. And I want to also warn you about future false flag attacks that may be coming up very soon, because I had a friend of mine that tagged me in this ad. It was actually an ad on Facebook. I'm going to put a screenshot of it right here, and it was asking for crisis actors, asking for people to be in an event for a preparedness exercise. And interestingly enough, some of those dates, April 8th and 9th, are in my home state of Washington here in Spokane. They're looking for crisis actors for a preparedness exercise, of course, because remember, many of these false flag attacks that happen in our country normally happen when there is some type of training event held in the area. So then people in the local area don't necessarily know what's going on. They're told there's a training event, but then a false flag occurs, so it's very easy for them to do a planned attack that way. Now, I just, you know, throwing it out there, hopefully around the 8th or 9th of this month, there won't be something in the area of Spokane or in my state here. But, you know, it's great just to be warned. So be on the lookout, guys. Anyway, done.